G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Stories with Mags. So, for those of you who don't know, today is Australia Day, and as such, we're going to talk about one of the most infamous and poorly thought out military campaigns ever ran in Australian history. Yes, today we're talking about the Emu War. The year is 1932 and Australia is under attack. In the Great Western State, a marauding horde has formed, numbering over 20,000 strong. This highly mobile force is adept at hit-and-run guerrilla tactics and was striking at the agricultural industry, raiding and pillaging farmlands all across the southwestern corner of the country. These were the emus. So essentially what happened here was in the 1920s, Australia was really beginning to ramp up its agricultural industry, creating vast irrigated farmlands very close to the untamed areas of the Australian outback, full of high-quality crops, mainly consisting of wheat. The problem was, in the early 1930s, the prices for wheat had bombed to such a point where it was actually less expensive and therefore more financially viable for a farmer to let their wheat crops sit on the ground than it was to actually load them onto a truck and try and sell them. This meant that there was large cultivated farming areas with ready access to water and large high-quality food supplies sitting right next to wildlands inhabited by large numbers of the Australian wildlife. What could possibly go wrong? What's more, these farmlands were owned primarily by World War I veterans or retired officers of the Australian military, many still with ties to the military. After some time attempting to deal with the marauding avians themselves, many of these former servicemen called out to the Australian military for help, and so the first campaign began. The first campaign began in October 1932 under the command of Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 2nd Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery. Under his command was Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran. However, the campaign had to be delayed due to heavy rain, forcing the units of the Emu's 1st Company to disperse back into the surrounding bushlands. The rain ceased on the 2nd of November and the Emus returned in force. Major Meredith's force was deployed into the northeastern section of the conflict area armed with 2 Lewis automatic machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, with orders to decimate the Emu's 1st Company and, in a particularly barbaric move, collect the skins of 100 emus so that the feathers could be used to make hats for the Australian Light Cavalry divisions. So, let's talk about the Lewis gun for just a second. The Lewis gun was a light machine gun developed during the First World War, and while the name light makes you think small, it wasn't. Designed to be fired from a mounted position or in a 2-man group, it was a little over 1.2 metres long, 11 centimetres wide, and weighed around 13 kilograms. Now, while the Vickers had a decent rate of fire for the time period of around 500 rounds per minute in the man-portable variant, the muzzle velocity of the round was only around 740 metres per second, giving the Lewis gun an effective firing range of only about 800 metres. The emus, on the other hand, relied totally on mobility. While in size at their largest, emus can be up to 1.9 metres tall, they rarely grow to over 40 kilograms in weight. They can sustain a near constant movement speed of around 25 kilometers per hour on all terrain, and when needed can maintain a sprinting speed for a limited period of time of up to 50 kilometers per hour. This is over almost all terrain on offer within the conflict zone. The first engagement took place on the 2nd of November 1932. After spotting an assault force of the Emu's 1st Company numbering about 50 strong near the town of Campion, Major Meredith's strike force conscripted the local population into herding the Emu warriors into an ambush. The Emus, however, saw this move for what it was, continually breaking their force into smaller groups and outmaneuvering the untrained conscripts, and after the first burst of fire from the Lewis gun revealed the ambush, maintained a distance beyond the maximum firing range of the Lewis guns. While the ambush was a failure, the Emu's force had been bloodied, losing a small number of their warriors. Later in the day, while moving positions, Meredith's force encountered a second raiding party, where they managed to down maybe a dozen more. Having just seen the emus display the true advantages that speed, agility and knowledge of the terrain have to offer, Meredith realised that a new plan was needed. On the 4th of November, an ambush was set by a local dam that the emus had claimed as a water source for their forces. Not long after setting the ambush, a major part of the emus' 1st Company, more than 1,000 strong, was spotted moving towards the ambush point. This time, the gunners held their fire until the emus were nice and close, but fate, as it turned out, was on the emus' side. As Sergeant McMurray pulled the trigger on the big Lewis gun, it roared to life, and then almost immediately jammed. By the time the jam could be cleared, the emus had withdrawn and scattered. Only 12 birds of the 1,000-strong force were killed, and no other emu forces were sighted for the next several days. Due to the lull in activity on the northeastern front, Meredith moved his forces into the south, opening up a second front, but again, met only with limited success. Army observers reporting on the progress of the campaign to command noted that the emus had seemingly rearranged their forces into smaller guerrilla combat groups, each with their own leader, a notably larger alpha that recons the area while the rest of his force raids and pillages, warning his mates of the approach of any hostile forces. In an attempt to improve the combat capabilities of the unit, Meredith mounted one of the Vickers machine guns on a flatbed truck, attempting to match the mobility of his foe. But it proved ineffective. It turns out that several tons of late 1920s Ford flatbed can't match the speed of an emu over rough terrain, and the truck was so unstable at speed that the gunner was unable to fire the large Vickers safely. By the 8th of November, just 8 days after the commencement of the campaign, the unit had fired over 2,500 rounds, a quarter of their ammunition, and had only managed somewhere around 200 kills, although the reported numbers vary from between 50 to 500. An ornithologist by the name of Dominic Seventry commented on the progress of the campaign. Quote, "The machine gunner's dreams of point-blank fire into the serried masses of emus were soon dissipated. The emu command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics, and its unwieldy army soon split into innumerable small units that made use of the military equipment uneconomic. A crestfallen field force therefore withdrew from the combat area after about a month." After the withdrawal, Major Meredith spoke of his foe with respect. Quote, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. They are like Zulus, whom even dum-dum bullets could not stop." In his final official report on the campaign, Meredith noted that his men had suffered no casualties. Following the withdrawal of the Australian forces, the emu's first company redoubled its raids on local farmland, a drought forming in the emu's homelands, bringing in reinforcements in their thousands. Once again, local farmers began requesting the support, with James Mitchell, the Premier of Western Australia, lending his support for a second campaign to quell the invasion. On the 12th of November, the Minister of Defence authorised the commencement of a second campaign, with Major Meredith's force being redeployed into the field. Now you would think, discovering that the emus were more like feathered raptors mated with armoured cars, that the tactics would change, but no. Once again, the force consisted of 2 Lewis machine guns, 10,000 rounds of ammunition, and 3 good men versus the emu horde. Wasting no time, the force was redeployed back into the north on the 13th of November, and in the first engagement downed 40 of their foe. Setting up engagement zones from within the farmers' properties themselves, the Australians managed to average around 100 of the feathered fiends per week. The campaign continued until the 2nd of December, where Meredith and his force were once again withdrawn from the field. In his report, he claimed 968 kills for 9,860 rounds fired, exactly 10 rounds per one confirmed kill. In addition, Meredith claimed another 2,500 of the emu force down due to wounds sustained in combat. Impressively, the Australian force once again sustained no losses. The campaign could only be described as a stalemate at best, however. While the emu's primary force had been held off from the core farmlands, the raids on the outlying properties would continue unabated, with the emus holding control over the areas for the years following. Requests for military aid in dealing with the Emu Nation would continue until 1948. These requests would be denied, however, with 1932 being the only year that forces of the Australian military would meet the emu horde on the field. The emus had taken a clear victory. And unfortunately to date, in spite of the ending of hostilities with the Emu Nation, no emu has ever joined or been approached with the offer to serve in the Australian Defence Force, in spite of their proven and fantastic combat record. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for watching. As always, please check the video description down below for links to my social media, my Twitch, and to my Patreon. My patrons and their support are the only thing that allows this series to be made, and I cannot thank my supporters enough for it. As always, remember to click that like button and to share this video, and also remember to subscribe if you would like to see more. And until next time, mates, take care.